Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know, today we're tackling something I think we all struggle with a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, quieting that inner voice.
Yeah.
The one that can totally sabotage our confidence. Especially like in social situations,
Right.
it can be rough. But luckily, we've got a great piece here all about personal growth, and it dives into some seriously practical advice. I'm so ready to unpack this.
Yeah, it's so interesting, how we get in our own way. Like we create these barriers to connecting with others. And it's not always something outside of us. It's that inner dialogue that can really undermine our confidence.
Ugh, it's so true. Like, we're our own worst critics sometimes.
Yeah.
This article talks about shifting our focus outward. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, shooting focus outward.
Yeah.
It's powerful. Instead of constantly analyzing how you're coming across, the key is to actually focus on the other person. The person you're interacting with. Notice their subtle hues, their tone of voice, their expressions, even their body language.
Yeah.
It's more than just observing, though. You can use those observations to ask engaging questions or tailor your responses to their mood, showing genuine interest.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just being a passive observer, but an active participant who's genuinely curious about the other person.
Exactly.
So you become more present and engaged in the conversation.
Yeah, and by doing that, you kind of naturally quiet that inner critic. Because you're so focused on the other person that you break free from that cycle of overthinking and self-doubt.
Right.
Plus, as the source points out, this outward focus makes you a more attentive and engaging conversationalist, which, can boost your attractiveness.
Makes sense? It's like a shift in perspective, really. Instead of worrying about how you're being perceived, you're genuinely trying to understand the other person. That can be super attractive because it shows you're not self-absorbed.
Precisely. Now, the source also talks about embracing imperfection, which might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about confidence.
I know, right? We're always told to strive for perfection, but this article is suggesting that authenticity is key.
Yeah, definitely. Authenticity is way more magnetic than some kind of manufactured perfection, Striving for perfection can make you seem rigid and unapproachable. The source gives a great example. If you mispronounce someone's name, don't dwell on it or try to cover it up.
Yeah.
Instead, own it with humor.
I love that. It's so refreshing to hear that it's okay to make mistakes. It makes you more relatable. Like you're saying, hey, I'm human, just like you.
Exactly. It shows you're not afraid to be yourself, flaws and all. And you know what? It gives the other person permission to relax and be themselves too, which creates a much more genuine and comfortable connection.
Yeah, that totally takes the pressure off of everyone. Okay, so we're focusing outward. We're embracing imperfection. What's the next key element in this confidence-boosting toolkit?
Well, the source highlights the importance of cultivating presence. And this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about physically being there, it's about being mentally and emotionally engaged in the moment.
So it's about more than just showing up.
Right. It's about being fully present. The source suggests a simple but powerful technique. Before a social situation, take a few deep breaths and do a quick body scan meditation. Notice any tension you're holding in your body and consciously release it.
I love that. It's like hitting a reset button on your mind and body, allowing you to fully engage without all that mental clutter.
Yeah, and when you're present, you project this sense of calm and composure, which puts others at ease.
It's about grounding yourself and being in the moment.
Precisely. Now, while outward focus is important, the source also says we shouldn't neglect our own needs in the process. True confidence comes from a place of self-awareness and self-respect.
That's a good point. I've often struggled with finding that balance between focusing on others and staying true to myself.
It's a delicate balance, for sure, and it's something we can explore further as we get into the next set of techniques. One of those is the art of playful banter.
Ooh, yeah.
Which I know you're excited about.
I am. This is one of the things I've always admired in people who seem naturally confident. They can keep the conversation light and enjoyable, using a bit of teasing to show they don't take things too seriously.
The example the source gives is joking about pineapple on pizza.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a classic, lighthearted topic that can spark fun back and forth, It helps break the ice and creates a more relaxed atmosphere.
The pineapple on pizza debate is a classic. I personally love it, but I know it's controversial. What about you?
I'm firmly in the no pineapple camp, but I appreciate a good debate. But, joking aside, playful banter shows you're confident enough to be a bit silly and not take yourself too seriously.
Exactly. And I think it helps to create a sense of connection, even if it's just a shared dislike of pineapple on pizza.
Absolutely. It signals that you're not like overly invested in the outcome of the interaction. You're just there to enjoy the conversation and the company.
So we've got focusing outward, embracing imperfection, cultivating presence, and mastering the art of playful banter. What else does this confidence toolkit have in store for us?
Well, next we'll talk about something that can be a real confidence killer for a lot of people. The need for constant validation.
Oh, yeah.
It's that inner voice that says, I need this person to like me, to feel good about myself.
Yeah, it's that constant, seeking of approval,
Yeah.
whether it's through compliments or just trying to impress others.
Right.
It can be exhausting.
It can, and it often stems from like a lack of self-worth.
Right.
So we look to others to validate our worth instead of recognizing it within ourselves.
This article had a really empowering message on that.
Yeah,
You don't need anyone's validation to know your worth.
that's so true.
It's about recognizing your inherent value, regardless of external opinions.
And that's where true confidence comes from, you
Yeah.
know? Knowing your own value and not needing others to confirm it. And when you let go of that need for constant validation, you become more attractive because it demonstrates self-assurance and emotional independence.
It's like you're saying, hey, I'm good with who I am, whether you approve or not. And that kind of confidence is magnetic. It shifts the dynamic from chasing approval to simply enjoying the interaction for what it is.
Absolutely. Which brings us to vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's important to clarify that vulnerability isn't about oversharing or like spilling your deepest secrets on a first encounter.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's about being open and honest and genuine in your interactions.
Right. It's not about unloading all your baggage. It's about selectively sharing something meaningful
Exactly.
that gives the other person a glimpse into who you are beyond the surface level.
This source gives a good example. Let's say someone asks about your favorite childhood memory.
Okay.
Don't just give a generic answer. Share something that really resonates with you, something that reveals a bit of your inner world.
Right.
It can be like a funny anecdote or a heartwarming story or even a moment of vulnerability that shaped who you are.
I can see how that would create a deeper connection. It shows you're comfortable sharing a part of yourself, which builds trust and allows for a more authentic connection.
And it also demonstrates confidence because it shows you're not afraid to let people see your true self, imperfections and all.
Okay, so we've talked about the internal shifts that can boost confidence. Focusing outward, embracing imperfection, cultivating presence, engaging in playful banter, letting go of validation, and embracing vulnerability. But what about the external aspects, like our body language?
That's a crucial piece of the puzzle. Nonverbal communication speaks volumes, often conveying more than words alone. The source emphasizes some key nonverbals that project confidence and approachability. Things like maintaining open posture, making good eye contact,
Yes.
offering genuine smiles, and even appropriate touch when the situation calls for it.
Right, like if you're slouching, avoiding eye contact, and frowning, you're probably going to give off a vibe of insecurity or disinterest, no matter how eloquent your words are.
Exactly. But when you embody those confident nonverbals, standing tall, making eye contact, smiling warmly,
Yeah.
you project a completely different energy. You come across as more approachable, engaging, and ultimately more attractive.
It's like you're saying, hey, I'm comfortable here. I'm interested in connecting with you. And that makes a huge difference in how people perceive you.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to another crucial element of confident communication: active listening.
Okay.
And I want to emphasize that it's not just about hearing the words, but truly understanding what the other person is saying and feeling.
So it's about being present, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. As we talked about earlier, it's about putting aside your own thoughts and agenda for a moment and focusing entirely on the speaker.
Exactly. The source outlines some key techniques for active listening: nodding to show you're following along, resisting the urge to interrupt,
Right.
responding thoughtfully to what the other person has said,
Yeah.
and acknowledging their emotions. It's about making the other person feel heard and understood.
It's like you're creating a safe space for them to share their thoughts and feelings without judgment or interruption. And that can be incredibly powerful in building trust and rapport.
What's fascinating is that active listening often gets overlooked as a confidence booster, but it actually plays a huge role. When you demonstrate that you genuinely care about what the other person has to say, it shows a level of self-assurance that's very appealing.
Because you're not trying to dominate the conversation or prove yourself. You're comfortable letting the other person take the lead, knowing that you're still actively engaged and contributing to the interaction.
Exactly. Now, this might seem counterintuitive,
Okay.
but the source suggests that another aspect of confident communication is taking the lead in interactions.
Wait, so you're saying that taking charge can actually help us quiet that inner critic?
Yeah,
I thought confidence was more about blending in and not rocking the boat.
that's a common misconception. The source reframes leadership as guiding the conversation with confidence and purpose. It's not about dominating or controlling the interaction, but confidently steering it in a positive direction.
So it's like being the captain of the ship, but in a collaborative way. You're setting the course, but you're also open to input from the other passengers.
That's a great analogy. It's about taking initiative, showing that you're comfortable driving the conversation forward. And I can see how that would be attractive.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of security and direction, which can put others at ease.
And it can help quiet that inner critic that's always second-guessing everything we do.
Precisely. It signals that you're not afraid to take the reins, which in turn conveys a sense of confidence and self-assurance. Now, taking the lead can take many forms, and it's not always about initiating the conversation. It can be as simple as asking engaging questions that steer the conversation in a meaningful direction.
So instead of just passively responding, we can actively shape the conversation.
Exactly. Think of it as co-creating the interaction. You're not just a passenger, you're an active participant who helps to shape the experience.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the internal shifts that can boost confidence, like focusing outward, embracing imperfection, cultivating presence, engaging in playful banter, letting go of validation and embracing vulnerability. And we've also explored the external aspects like nonverbal communication, active listening, and leading the interaction.
It's like a holistic approach to building confidence.
Yeah.
Both from the inside out and from the outside in.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how all of these elements work together, to shape our interactions and how we feel about ourselves in social situations.
It's like a dance, this delicate balance of internal awareness and external expression. And like any dance, it takes practice.
It does, it really does. And the more we practice these skills, the more confident and at ease we become in our interactions, like building a muscle.
Oh, yeah.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
I love that analogy. And it's important to remember that confidence isn't something you either have or you don't. It's a skill that can be developed and strengthened over time with consistent effort.
Yeah, so don't get discouraged if you don't feel like a social butterfly overnight.
Right.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And the beauty of this journey is that it not only boosts your confidence, but it also leads to more authentic and fulfilling connections with others.
Because when you're not constantly battling that inner critic, you're free to be your true self, which is what makes you magnetic and draws people to you.
Authenticity is truly the key. People can sense when you're being genuine, and that's what creates a real connection.
I think that's a really powerful takeaway from this deep dive. It's not about trying to be someone you're not, or striving for some impossible standard of perfection.
Right.
It's about embracing who you are, flaws and all, and showing up authentically in your interactions.
Well said. And as you start to embody these principles, you'll notice a shift, not only in how you feel about yourself, but also in how others respond to you.
So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts for our listeners. What's one small step they can take today to start quieting that inner voice and connect more genuinely in their next interaction?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to simply become aware of that inner critic. Notice when it's chattering away, judging your every move. And instead of trying to silence it completely, which can be a real struggle, try to just detach from it. Recognize that it's just a thought, a voice in your head, and it doesn't define you.
That's such a good point. We often give so much power to that inner voice, but it's really just a collection of thoughts and beliefs, many of which may not even be true.
Exactly. And once you start to detach from that inner critic, you can begin to choose which thoughts to engage with and which ones to let go of.
That's so empowering. It puts us back in the driver's seat of our own minds.
Precisely. And from that place of awareness and empowerment, you can start to experiment with the techniques we've talked about today. Try shifting your focus outward in your next conversation. Notice the other person's body language, their tone of voice, their energy. Ask engaging questions that show you're genuinely interested.
Or try incorporating a bit of playful banter. Doesn't have to be about pineapple on pizza. But find something lighthearted that you can both connect over.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Embrace those imperfections with humor and grace.
It's all part of being human and connecting with other humans.
Beautifully said. So go out there and experiment, have fun with it, and remember, the more you practice, the more confident and connected you'll become.
This has been such a great deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm excited to put these techniques into practice.
Me too. It's always a pleasure to explore these topics with you.
And with all of you. Thanks for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of knowledge and personal growth. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining your light.